And here we are again, and I'm very happy to present to you and introduce to you EU Commissioner Didier Reynders. Welcome very much. Mr. Reynders, the stage is yours for your keynote.
But sorry for the delay and sorry to have organized such a process with some minutes late, but sometimes we are going from one video to another one. So it's a real pleasure to be here with you to introduce this interesting conference, which will take a number of important issues around data protection and the role of privacy for individuals in the global digital economy. Today, we are faced with an unprecedented challenge. The COVID-19 pandemic is affecting our life in many ways, and relying on digital solutions to address the situation is more relevant than ever. In this context, finding the right balance between reliance on technology on the one hand and democracy and fundamental rights on the other has become crucial. Ensuring privacy is more important than ever to allow citizens to fully trust new technological solutions and use them without fear. In the European Union, the GDPR has proved to be a flexible instrument to support us in addressing the pandemic. Our recommendation on the use of mobile apps on 8 April has shown how we can fight the pandemic while protecting the privacy of individuals. However, the pandemic is only one example reflecting the basic truth that comprehensive privacy rules are key in the response to the global challenges we face today. As we have learned the hard way, data protection is also a democratic imperative at a time when the integrity of our electoral processes and thus the very functioning of our democracies can be threatened by the misuse of data. More generally, data protection is a central component of a human-centric approach to the challenges and opportunities of the digital era that the European Union wants to promote at home and in the world. Last but not least, from a business perspective, data protection has become an economic necessity. Without the trust of consumers in the way their data is handled, there can be no sustainable growth of our increasingly data-driven economy. There are many studies confirming this, including a very interesting study published by Cisco in the spring of 2020 on the impact of data protection on consumer choice. Along the same lines, data protection is increasingly seen as a trade facilitator. Convergence toward robust data protection rules is key to ensuring the safe and free flow of data toward other trading partners. This applies to the rules for commercial operators, but also to those governing the conduct of public authorities. Free trade requires a stable regulatory framework, and where goods and services move across borders, so must regulatory cooperation. Trust can also be affected not just by abusive commercial behavior, but also by fears of disproportionate government access. This underlines the importance of ensuring appropriate limits and safeguards, as the Court of Justice has done in its recent Schrems II judgment. I will come back to Schrems II in a minute. Let me just say a few more words on the importance of international convergence. I have repeatedly stated our commitment to facilitate data flows. It is notably reflected in many statements in the European Parliament, the communication on the first 2 years of implementation of the GDPR that the Commission adopted in June, as well as in the Commission's communication on the European Data Strategy adopted last February. First, developing strong privacy safeguards and promoting free flow of data are not conflicting objectives, but rather two sides of the same coin. This is why we are engaging in discussion and negotiations with international partners, both bilaterally and in multilateral fora. This includes, for example, the current work at the OECD or push for banning data localization in the ongoing e-commerce negotiation at the WTO. I'm convinced that international convergence represents a win-win situation both for consumers who see their data protected abroad and business that will enjoy new economic opportunities. We are happy to see in this respect that an increasing number of countries around the world are adopting new privacy laws or modernizing existing ones. These developments are remarkable, not only from a quantitative, but also from a qualitative point of view. Many of these laws tend to be based on a core set of common principles that are also shared by the European Union. This is truly a universal trend, running from Chile to South Korea, from Brazil to Japan, from Kenya to India, from Tunisia to Indonesia, just to mention a few examples. The increasingly universal membership of the Council of Europe's Convention 108 is additional proof of this trend. That brings me back to the Schrems II judgment. Ladies and gentlemen, this ruling is a strong affirmation of the right to data protection in a globalized world. The judgment raises a very fundamental question. How can the right to privacy, which in the EU and many other countries has constitutional value, be effectively protected in the borderless digital world, when it only takes a fraction of a second to send data abroad? And it is not only a transatlantic issue. The standard set by the court is the key point of reference for all data transfers, and as such for our current negotiations with South Korea and the UK, as well as for our review of the existing adequacy decisions. Beyond adequacy, the court has stressed the responsibility of companies to pay more attention to where personal data is sent, under which legal framework the data importer operates, and whether additional safeguards might have to be put in place. I'm aware that this is not an easy task, and there is a strong call for more clarifications around the principles set by the court. In this respect, I would like to reassure you that we are working hard to ensure such clarity. We are focusing on three main areas. First, as you probably have seen from my joint press statement with US Commerce Secretary Ross, we have initiated discussions with the US authorities to explore the possibility of a strengthened successor framework to the Privacy Shield. We hope to intensify our work with the US on this in the coming weeks. But we also have to recognize that the judgment raises complex issues related to an area, national security, that by its nature is particularly sensitive both inside and outside Europe. Therefore, these are not issues that lend themselves to a quick fix. We need sustainable solutions that deliver legal certainty in full compliance with the judgment of our highest court. A second important work stream is the modernization of the standard contractual clauses, or SCCs. We have been working on this in the past months to fully align the SCCs with the GDPR and to ensure that they are adapted to the realities of today's digital economy. But we had, of course, to wait for the court judgment before finalizing the new clauses. Given the important further clarifications that we all expect from the data protection authorities, we also need to make sure that our work is closely aligned with the guidance that they are preparing, because the SCCs are so widely used and are particularly useful for smaller businesses. Finalizing this work stream is a top priority for us. We therefore intend to launch the adoption process in the coming weeks. At the same time, speed should not win over quality. We want to get this right and ensure that the new SCCs are truly useful to assist companies in their compliance efforts. Some of you have already expressed your desire to be consulted, which I very much welcome. As soon as we publish the draft SCCs, we will organize a virtual event to obtain the input from the business side and other stakeholders. To conclude, I think that irrespective of whether we speak about the development of new technologies in the context of the pandemic or facilitating data flows more generally, we should not see privacy as a challenge or an obstacle. Rather, privacy should be a part of the solution. And of course, I'm happy to respond to any question you may have. I want just to insist on the fact that we have internal rules at the EU level, the GDPR, but we want to be sure that when we organize the travel for the data, it's possible also for the protection to travel in the same way than the data, and not only to a third country, but maybe to another one through an agreement between two third countries. To give an example, if we have an adequacy decision one day with UK, it will be important to be sure that the protection is traveling with the data not only to UK, but also to the US or another third countries if there is an agreement between UK and such another third country like the US or maybe Japan. But thanks again for your attention, and I will be pleased to respond to your questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynders, for this really enlightening keynote, and it's really good to hear that the Commission is very aware of the importance of the third country transfer issues that have come up in new actuality with the Schrems II jurisdiction. We welcome that the debate about data strategy and data use is led in combination with the further development of the data protection rules, and is supposed to be in line with data protection and the fundamental rights. Sounds easy sometimes, but is actually in practice not always as easy to comply with. So I just asked my colleagues whether we have any questions in line, but I think there are there are none at the moment. So so thank you very much for your time, Commissioner, and I really we all, I think, appreciate that you're also willing to discuss the SCCs with those who are gonna use it later on, and are ready to take in their opinions. I think this is very much appreciated throughout the economy, and I know that many of our members at least are working on this issue for quite a long time, and also on their BCRs in order to ensure safe third country transfers. So thank you very much for sharing your views with us tonight. Hope we will continue the dialogue on this, and have a good time, and you're very welcome to listen to the further speakers.
Thank you very much. But if I may, just to say that, sorry again for the fact that I was late at the beginning of the meeting, but just to say that please take part in the consultation that we will organize about the SCCs. But we are very open also to receive informations about the additional safeguards or the supplementary measures that some companies are putting in place on the basis maybe of the Schrems II decision, or maybe before, because it will be important to show that there are different ways to fulfill all the criteria of the GDPR in the way to exchange data with third countries. Of course, an adequacy decision is the most efficient one, but if we are using SCCs, it's also important sometimes to have additional safeguards or supplementary measures. So please take take part in the consultation, but don't hesitate to send to us some information about the additional safeguards that they are putting in place by some companies. But thanks again for such an opportunity.
Just one last remark. Tomorrow we will discuss also new ideas on codes of conduct that are foreseen by the GDPR. Maybe we could use this as another new instrument in Europe to safeguard third country data transfers. Thank you very much for having us, and
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.